Okay. Fake news. Fake news. Fake news. Fake news. That's all you hear these days. Fake news, fake news, fake news. Everything's fake news. Now, if you put any real news out there about, months back, like hydroxychloroquine may have some positive effects, the social media oligarchs, they throw you off the air. They block you. They put tags on your stuff. They say this is false. And it doesn't matter if the information is false. They've tainted it to the public by just saying it may be false. And then it turns out they're fact checkers, or these people that work with these really way left, progressive, and liberal think tanks. And what they think are facts are not what we think are facts. And you know that. You know I know that. And you know that too. That's why we have this thing going every day. Now, there are some weird things happening, right? In Pennsylvania, you have the leader of the Republican majority Senate saying that he wants to get a joint resolution to have the legislature appoint the electors. That's big. We'll see if it happens. Now, in Arizona, they've certified 2 elections, but at the same time, the House and Senate, or Assembly and the Senate in Arizona, they need to also ratify those results and seat the electors. Michigan, same exact story. So while the mainstream media, the needia, because they need us to believe this crap, if the needia wants to keep telling us that there is this office of president-elect, which doesn't exist, and I'll tell you later, the Congress actually came out and made it clear that there is no such thing, okay? Riddle me this, Batman. Kamala Harris, she's still a senator, right? But she's elected. She's won. She's going to be the first woman African-American vice president. And Ryan Fournier says Kamala Harris still hasn't resigned her Senate seat yet. Why? And then you start thinking about the fake news, and I tell you, there's one guy on CNN, he must have taken the wrong medicine that day, or he's looking to get kicked off, lose his job or something, because Fareed Zakaria, a big Trump critic, okay, he said the truest thing ever. And this is why Kamala Harris hasn't given up her seat yet. Let's take a walk down Donald Trump's path to victory on this terrific Tuesday edition of Stop the Steal with some kind and very smart words from Fareed Zakaria.
Here's my take. By declining to commit to a peaceful transfer of power, President Trump has agitated many who fear he will refuse to leave office even if he loses the November election and may even resort to violence. But the terrifying reality is that there are also mechanisms that are legal and constitutional that could enable Trump to stay in office without actually winning the vote. The system of electing the president is complicated because it was not designed to be directly democratic. The Constitution calls for states to choose the presidential electors, who in turn gather to vote for the president. Over time, states have passed laws that ensured their state's popular vote for the presidency would determine the electors. But those are laws, not a constitutional obligation. Now, imagine the scenario during election week. Trump is leading on November 3rd, but Joe Biden pulls ahead in the days following. Republicans file objections to tens of thousands of mail-in ballots. Democrats file countersuits. Taking account of the confusion, legislators decide to choose the electors themselves. Here's the worry. Of the 9 swing states, 8 have Republican legislatures. If one or more decide that balloting is chaotic and marred by irregularities, they could send what they regard as the legitimate slate of electors, which would be Republican. Democrats may object and file lawsuits. In some of those states, Democratic governors or secretaries of state could send their own slates of electors to Washington. That would add to the confusion, but that might well be part of the Republican plan.
Fareed, so honest. No fake news.
No fake news.
Tell me more, Fareed. Tell me more. What else might the Republicans do? And if you notice, he said these aren't laws. This is under the Constitution. I don't know what's got into Fareed, but check this out.
When Congress convenes on January 6th to tally the electors' votes, there would be challenges to the legitimacy of some electors. It's possible congressional Republicans could decide that disputed states should simply not be counted. Suppose in this scenario, Michigan's votes are invalidated. That would ensure that neither candidate would get to 270 electoral votes. At that point, the Constitution clearly directs that the House of Representatives vote to determine the presidential election. But it does so with each state casting a single ballot. If the current numbers hold, there would be 26 state delegations that are Republican and 23 Democratic, with one tied. So the outcome would be to re-elect Donald Trump. Trump doesn't need to do anything other than to simply accept this outcome, which is constitutional. Thanks to Tom Rogers and Tim Wirth for their writings on this topic.
So, according to Fareed Zakaria, the president doesn't have to do anything. If two states do not believe that their election was fair and free, they can seat their own electors. There'll be a situation where there aren't enough electors to get to 270, and then it goes to the House of Representatives, where the Republicans have a 26-23 lead with one tie. So, Fareed, my brother, preach.
Trump clearly understands this chain of events. He's been casting doubt on mail-in ballots for months, insisting that the results must be the ones that reflect the tally on election night. He said this week that without mail-in ballots, there would be no worries about a transfer of power because there would simply be a continuation of his rule. He has also acknowledged,
we have an advantage if we go back to Congress. Does everyone understand that? I think it's 26-22 or something because it's counted one vote per state.
Now, for this scenario to play out, state Republican parties have to put their desire to win above concerns that all voices in their state are heard. Unfortunately, recent history suggests that most will readily make this trade. Many state Republican parties have been actively attempting to suppress votes. Just a few examples. In 2011, Texas passed a law requiring a government ID for voting and allowed gun licenses but not student IDs from state universities. Ostensibly, this was to prevent voter fraud, which several studies have shown is largely non-existent. In 2017, Georgia passed a law blocking voter registration with minor typos, which mainly affected black voters. In Florida, the Republican governor and legislature have effectively gutted a state initiative that restored voting rights to more than 1 million former felons, disproportionately black.
All right, I know. You may be getting sick of Fareed Zakaria, and I can't stand Fareed Zakaria or CNN, but someone sent this to me. And quite frankly, he said something in there that, of course, is, lamestream media talking points, that Republicans do a lot of things to suppress votes. Note to Fareed, highest turnout ever in history, highest vote total for a Democrat with the fraud, second highest vote total ever, Donald Trump. So it's hard to show these huge gains in turnout and then say Republicans are suppressing the vote. But let Fareed finish up with a flurry.
American democracy is getting warped because the Republican Party believes that its path to power lies not in getting a majority of votes, but through other means. In 2018, thanks to redistricting, Republicans in Wisconsin, having won about 45% of the vote, ended up with almost 65% of the seats in the state assembly. They've become used to this kind of situation on the national stage. Think about this. Since 1992, the Republican presidential candidate has won the popular vote only one time, in 2004, and that too in the wake of the country's worst terrorist attack and with a wartime rally around the flag sentiment. Nevertheless, Republicans have held the White House for almost half of those 28 years. America prides itself as the world's leading democracy. And yet, because of a vague and creaky constitutional process and ferocious partisanship, this November, we might put on a display of democratic dysfunction that would rival any banana republic on the planet.
Did he say vague and creaky constitution? The founding fathers, some of the most brilliant men in history, put here on earth by God to form the greatest country ever in the history of the world. It's a creaky, that's what he said, vague and creaky constitution. His whole entire pitch throughout there, he talked about how these things are not laws. These are constitutional edicts set forth by the founding fathers, and not to be changed by some Democrat or Republican, not to be changed by some judge. They were put there for a reason. And if we have to get to the Supreme Court and tell everybody this is the way the Constitution lays it out, for everyone who keeps telling me I'm crazy, think again, my friends, because Donald Trump is heading back to the White House for another 4 years, if you ask me. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with some more Stop the Steal right after this.